I cut myself off. I held the phone wrong and I touched a button and it took me to something I didn't recognize. And I was like, oops. So I apologize. Um, this is Garage 81, where you watch an idiot make things with wood. Um, I was talking about the shop vac before. I'm going to go on to another tool. I'm going to discuss making the dust, which is going into sanding. Um, this is something that a lot of people probably overlook as far as their wood projects go, because they're anxious at the point in time that they get it made. They have this feeling of accomplishment, and they just want to like, I gotta get it done. I gotta get it done, and they don't realize that the sanding part is probably one of the more um, uh, uh, it's one of the more painful things to have to go through because you're having to do it on every single project. But it's one of the more important steps for a finished piece. Whether you're painting it, staining it, or just putting a top coat on it, you want to have a good smooth surface. And there's a lot of steps that you have to consider. But we're not going to go into like the whole process of sanding. What I want to get into is the tool. What tool would be a good one to start out with, and what one would be good to have in the shop? Now, I have one, two, three, four different types of sanders, and I don't have them all. I used to have a just a standard vibrating sander that my a Black and Decker one that my dad gave me, and that was sufficient, but it was very low end. And I went ahead and ditched that one because it was overgrown and the plug-in was all like janky and stuff. I thought, okay, vibrating sander. Let's go and find out what they have for vibrating sanders. Well, nowadays, for their vibrating sanders, what they have is something called a mouse, and it's a small, narrow object. And here is, I'm gonna see if I can turn this one around here just to give you an idea. This is a mouse sander, and all it does is just vibrate and shake a little pad of sandpaper around. It has a little tiny point, arrowhead shaped point on it to get you into tight spots. Um, that is a basic sander. That's something that I would say only use in small doses and in only in tight spots. I wouldn't really say to have something like that for general sanding purposes. There's two other types of sanders out there that I would suggest for tool consideration if you want to start one up, start up a shop. And the first one is a belt sander. Now, a belt sander is, and I don't have one in shop except for my table mounted belt sander, which is for shaping. But a handheld belt sander is a very aggressive sanding process. It's aggressive so that it speeds up your time sanding, and it takes off a lot of material very quickly. So if you are sanding plywood, I would probably not use a belt sander because it would go through that very very thin top layer of veneer very quickly, and you would lose that look that you were going for with a nice piece of plywood. Um, but like I said, the belt sander is good for taking off a lot of material. It's good for shaping and rounding corners. If you are working on solid pieces of wood and you need to level something really quickly and you don't have a plane, then and I don't mean flying plane. I mean like block plane and smoothing planes. Um, then the belt sander is your next best process to go to. And they have different size belts depending upon what type of tool you are using. Now I'm going to turn this around again. This is a this is for my tabletop sander. This is a 120 grit, and it is a 36 by 4 inch belt. So it continuously runs in a single direction, and it takes off a lot of material very, very quickly. But for probably for beginners, what I would say would be a good shop tool to start out with is something called an orbital sander. A random orbital sander, that's what I should call it. And this is kind of like a cross between the vibrating sander and the belt sander. This is a random orbiting sander, very well used. Of course, you know, if you're going to be having a tool like this, you're going to use it a lot frequently. And the sanding pad goes on via Velcro, and those holes there are for dust collection. So there's a little fan underneath that draws air up and takes it into a dust collection bin. So it's a very easy tool to use. On-off switch, dust collection bin, and then on the back side sometimes you will have a tool that has a what you would call a speed select, and usually I have mine cranked up so that it's on its best performance, but you can slow it down for different types of work. And so one of the things is that I'd have to say with an orbital sander is you're not pushing down on the material. And if you do that, what happens is you get these nice little swirl marks indelibly marked into your surface that are harder than hell to get off. So you're not pushing down, you're letting the machine do its work. You hold it in one area and you gently rotate it, and then you move on to the next, and then you just keep it up very, very slowly all the way across your material. And you will have, and you know, it might take a little bit of practice. You'll probably see some swirl marks. If you do get swirl marks, what I suggest doing is you go to back down to a lower grit, remove the swirl marks, and then start gradually bringing it up to a finer grit. If you try to get rid of the swirl marks with just the fine grit, you will find out that all you're doing is pushing that mark further down into the fiber, and you're not taking it out. The next thing that I would probably say with sanding in general is be very careful what type of sandpaper that you buy. Now, of course, you know, starting out, you got to go and consider the money that you have, and you think to yourself, well, I don't have a lot of money to spend, so I'm going to go to Harbor Freight, and I'm going to buy the Harbor Freight Orbital, and I'm going to buy the Harbor Freight sandpaper because they give you a lot for like $5. And you are getting exactly what you pay for with the tools and the equipment that you buy. Sandpaper included. My suggestion, and this is where I will get into stating a type of brand or something like that, is not to do the Harbor Freight line. As a matter of fact, that stuff is crap. If you want to do any kind of long-term sanding with sandpaper, you want it to last longer, you're going to get 3 times the usage out of something that costs maybe a few dollars more. You know, a $5 pack of 8 sanding pads from Harbor Freight, you could go and buy 5 sanding pads at close to $10, and they'll last you 3 times longer. What I get is Norton. Norton is a long time brand that's been out in the market for ages, and they know how to get their grind on. Norton does grinding wheels, they do sanding discs, they do buffing pads, they do all this kind of stuff. They know what they're doing. So I would suggest going out and getting the Norton brand sanding pads for whatever type of tool that you're using. You're going to find a markedly improved reaction off of your tool if you use a better substrate, better gearing, like your circular saw. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what brand of circular saw that you get. I mean, I have a Craftsman. I have a Black & Decker. I intend on getting a rigid. But what I do suggest is that if you do get a circular saw and it's fairly new, go ahead and drop a little bit of coin in getting a Diablo blade. General to fine purpose. They're about $15 for a blade, and they will last you 10 times longer and give you a heck of a lot better cut than something that you get at Harbor Freight. As a matter of fact, anything at Harbor Freight, it wouldn't even hold a lick of water against a Diablo blade. Diablos also create different types of blades for different types of purposes. I'm just, spouting out what I know for woodworking. I know that they do create some metal blades, for metal cutting that are made of a special material that doesn't spark. I mean, that's how much they know about their material. So what you put on your tool to make your tool work, like you get a drill gun. What type of drill bits are you using? What type of driver bits are you using? Well, I have a tendency of getting DeWalt or Hitachi styled bits or drill bits or driver bits, because they have a tendency of being made of a little bit better metal that it doesn't roach out the head while you're driving a lot of screws in. Whereas if you go and you buy a cheap Chinese brand Harbor Freight drill bits, yeah, they're cheap. You're going to be blowing through them a lot as well too. I mean, that's a waste. It's a complete waste. You can have just a few DeWalt driver bits, and they will last you forever. So it is what you put with your tool that matters. I don't really have a huge problem with some of Harbor Freight tools, but it's how they are equipped to do their work that is questionable. So the sander is something that I would say would be the next most capable thing that you would want to have in your shop next to your shop vac. How are you finishing your project? What is it going to look like when you get done with it? And how are you cleaning up your mess when you get done? Those things are that people just don't realize. Now, I do have other things for cleaning up messes. Besides the shop vac, I have, let's see here. I have this metal scoop, like cow shovel, and a shop broom, as well as a metal dustpan pickup. And those are really nice for picking up like larger scraps of material and shavings and things like that. And it saves your shop vac a little bit of work if you sweep up first and shovel up or scoop up what you can, put it into a nice trash barrel. It can pick up enough material, and this is a cute little trash barrel that I got. I'm very size oriented with my shop, so it's a brute, but it's about like a third of the size of a standard trash can. If you look at it with my stool next to it, then you get a size comparison. That thing is a tiny little like waste bin of a garbage can, and I empty it daily when I'm working out here. So those are the kind of considerations that I would think about when you are equipping your shop. How are you going to clean it up? How are you going to finish your projects? How is it going to look? Those are the two. So if you're going to create a list, go ahead and write it down. Shop vac, broom, whatever. Start making a list of cleanup items. Then make a list of what type of sanding equipment that you're going to want to put into the shop. So the mouse, very low end. I really wouldn't worry about a mouse unless you do a lot of tight, small work. The orbital would be the first one that I would suggest getting. And then if you want to get a little bit more aggressive, you can do a belt sander. And you don't have to have a table-mounted belt sander. You can use a hand-mounted belt sander upside down with a zip tie on it, lock it in place somehow, maybe create a jig to hold it in place, a cradle. And then you have a table-mounted belt sander that works just the same as a professional model. So, you can get creative with your tools. So those are the two things that I wanted to impart you with. And then next time I get on talking about tools, I'm going to be talking about some of the more useful things like routers, blades, things like that. Get your shaping done. So this is Garage 81, and the weather is changing. It looks like it might rain outside. Getting my tool wall cleaned up, getting my tables cleaned up. I have got to work on this big mess right over here. So next time you hopefully see a video, I will show you a really clean table. Bye.